Hello friends, so let us resume our discussion on where we left off in the previous lecture. That is, we were considering the different advantages of replacing the path variables with state variables. So we began our discussion by considering the first law of thermodynamics that largely stated that the overall change in the internal energy of the system is dependent on the heat transfer associated with the system and the work done by the system or on the system. Now in such a case, we were able to treat or consider the heat transfer separately and work done separately. And when we are able to do that, of course, in relation to the system that we have considered, the system that allows for the heat transfer to occur and the work done to happen. So in such a case, we were able to replace these thermodynamic variables with rather state variables. So these are thermodynamic path variables with rather thermodynamic state variables. Now in the previous lecture, then by replacing this, there are several advantages that are associated with it, and that we discussed in our previous lecture. And one of the advantages of replacing the path variables with the state variables, we saw that it leads to what we now refer to as Hess's law of summation. So it is by replacing this path variable to the state variable that allows for the Hess's law of summation. So to be more precise, you can also add another word to it. So it is Hess's law of heat summation. Now what essentially we did while discussing, or the way we arrived at this Hess's law of summation, is we consider rather a reaction, a generalized form of a reaction. So this reaction in our previous discussion, if you could recollect, involved XA atom and YB atom, and ultimately it resulted in a molecule of AX and BY. So this is a balanced equation. So whatever number of atoms are involved in the reactant side, it is being recovered in the product side. Now unfortunately, this reaction is rather convoluted or complicated, and we don't know the enthalpy change associated with this reaction. So therefore, since we are in a position to replace the path variables with state variables, it is possible for us to break down this larger reaction into simpler ones. Or it is also possible that in nature in itself, this convoluted reaction happens in stepwise. And since we have already translated our path variables to state variables, it is possible for us to consider these each steps individually. So therefore, we consider a first step where similarly like the overall original reaction, so this is the overall reaction or the ultimate one. Similar to that, in the first step, in the step 1, there is XA atom that is involved. However, instead of YB atom, there is ZB atoms that is involved, and the product is of the form AX and BIZ. So there is XA atoms involved and Y, or rather ZB atoms involved, and the product is of this form. Now as you can see, the number of atoms associated with, or number of B atoms rather associated with the product is I times Z. So the number of atoms in the product is I times more than that is involved in the reactant side. So therefore we include this P factor, thereby balancing this equation. So ultimately what we have is XA atom and IZB atom is involved to give a product that comprises of XA atoms and IZB atoms. So it is balanced. Now this product here, it reacts. So this initial reaction, the step 1 reaction, it was associated with enthalpy change of delta H1, which is known to us. And secondly, there is a second step that ultimately leads to the final product, wherein this reactant, or rather this product of the first reaction acts as the reactant for the second reaction, and it is associated with JBZ atoms, and ultimately what we end up with is AX and BY. So this product of the first reaction, it reacts with BZ atom, and ultimately we end up with having the final product of the overall reaction. Now here Y is nothing but IZ plus JZ, and therefore we have included a prefactor JZ here, and because of this relation the overall equation is balanced. So the number of A atoms and B atoms that are involved in the reactant side are being recovered in the product side, and this being a simpler reaction, it is possible for us to calculate the enthalpy change associated with the second step of the reaction as well, associated with the second step as well. Now we can sum these two reactions and we can see if the overall reaction is recovered or not. And when we sum this two up, we saw that the overall reaction, in the previous lecture we saw that the overall reaction is recovered rather, so therefore the delta H, the overall, so let's just to make a distinction, we write delta H overall is equal to delta H plus 1, that is delta H1 that is associated with the first step, plus delta H2 that is associated with the second step. So in this way, whatever reactions that we have, it may be convoluted, it may be difficult to understand, or it might have it might be understood in a better way by breaking down into smaller steps. If we are in a position, or if we are able to replace or express this reaction, that is the thermodynamic aspect of this reaction, using the state variables, then it is possible for us to consider these individual steps separately, then sum it up to understand the overall thermodynamic change that facilitates the overall the entire reaction. So let me repeat, supposing we are considering a chemical reaction, and this chemical reaction is rather convoluted for us to understand the thermodynamic change associated with it. So we are considering a larger reaction, a complex reaction. It is because of the complexity associated with it, it is difficult for us to calculate the change in the thermodynamic parameters associated with it. Now if we are able to express this change in the reactions in terms of the state variables instead of path variables, then it is possible for us to break down this entire complex reaction into smaller steps. And these, it can be 2, it can be 3, it doesn't matter. It is possible for us to break down this larger reaction into smaller steps. And once we are able to do that, then we can calculate the thermodynamic changes associated with each of these steps, and then try to relate each of these steps and finally arrive at overall change in the reaction and the corresponding thermodynamic changes. So that is possible primarily because we are in a position to replace the path variables with state variables, and this is what we refer to as the Hess's law of heat summation or Hess's law of summation. Now again, all these are possible. So in addition to these two steps, we can also include a third step, fourth step. It all depends on how easy it is for us to calculate the thermodynamic relation associated with each step. It might be possible for us, it might so happen that even the step 1 is rather convoluted. So in that case, we might have to include, or you might have to even break down this into even intermediate step, or even a smaller step, even a fundamental step, so that it is easy for us to calculate the corresponding thermodynamic changes in terms of the state variable. So irrespective of how many intermediate steps you add, since everything is expressed in terms of the change in the state variables, the summation law, the laws of summation apply, because the change depends on just the state, not the path. Now this is just a generalized way of discussing the Hess's law of heat summation. Let us just consider two examples where we apply this particular summation law to a real case situation. So let us begin by considering something that we have been always talking about, that is the freezing of water, or in this case let us consider liquefaction of water. So what I mean by liquefaction of water is, or formation of water. So what we have is the hydrogen and oxygen molecules, they react to form water. So this is so what we have here is, we have two gaseous atoms that react to form a liquid molecule. So these are gaseous, and this is liquid. So what we essentially have is two gaseous atoms, they react to form a liquid product. Now if you consider this reaction here, as you can see, it is not balanced, because we have two hydrogen atoms that is involved in the reactant side, two oxygen atoms that is involved in the reactant side as well, but in the end the product, there is only one oxygen atom that is associated with the product. So therefore we need to balance it out. So when we balance this out, what we essentially need to do is we need to introduce a prefactor of 2 in the product side, so that the number of atoms of oxygen in the product is recovered. So if you introduce 2 here, what we have is we have now recovered the number of atoms, and the number of atoms in the reactant and the product side are equal. Now we can also, so however, as you can see, now the number of hydrogen atoms in the product side is higher, so we need to balance it out as well. So ultimately we have this balanced equation wherein 2 gaseous atoms or 2 atoms in their gaseous state, they react to form a liquid product. Now there is a reaction and also there is a phase change. So in this condition, so what happens in this reaction is you have a chemical reaction, in addition to that you have a phase change. So in such a case wherein you have a combination of chemical reaction and also a phase change associated with it, the thermodynamic changes associated with such reaction or determining it is quite difficult. So ultimately what we have, or the place where we are in, is that we are not able to calculate exactly the entropy change, or rather the enthalpy change associated with it. So now, since we have been able to, or it is possible for us to replace the path variables associated with this reaction to state variables, now we can break this down into 2 or even smaller steps. So the first step involves considering just the chemical reaction where the hydrogen molecule comprising of 2 hydrogen atoms and oxygen molecule, both in their gaseous state, they react to form H2O in its gaseous state. So we have 2 molecules of hydrogen and oxygen in their gaseous state that ultimately forms a product which is also in its gaseous state. So we balance this reaction out. Like how we did it here, we are balancing this reaction here. Now when we do this, since this is what we have done is, initially we had a combination of chemical reaction and phase change. Now we are just considering the chemical reaction alone. The phase change is not considered in this reaction. So this is rather a simpler step of the overall convoluted reaction, the overall complex reaction. So it is possible for us, or when compared to this reaction here, for this step 1, it is possible for us to calculate the overall change in the enthalpy, or rather the change in the enthalpy. So this is known to us. Now as a second step, what we need to consider is just the phase change. So the H2O, that is in the form of gas, it transforms to H2O in the form of liquid. And this is, since we have already considered the chemical reaction associated with the formation of water, now we are just considering the liquefaction of the water, and it is possible for us, when compared to this overall reaction, this is rather a simpler one. It is possible for us to calculate the enthalpy change. Now essentially, like we saw in the law of summation, Hess's law of summation, the overall change in the enthalpy can be calculated from the overall change in these 2 different steps. However, we need to ensure that by considering both these steps together, we are able to arrive at a balanced overall reaction. Now we have to relate these 2 in such a way that the overall reaction is recovered. So now let us just try to sum these 2 reactions up without any balancing, without any consideration. Let us just try to sum this up. So if we sum this up, you would end up with, so this can be brought here, so whatever there is in the product side of the first step can be brought to the reactant side. So what you will end up having is 2H2 plus O2 minus 2H2O. So and then we are summing up the second step. This is again gaseous, 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 and you have your H2O that is gaseous from the step 2, so that is what is brought here, and ultimately you have your H2O that is liquid. Now so it is possible for us to subtract these 2, and then what we end up having is 2H2 which is in the gaseous state, O2 which is in the gaseous state, minus H2O which is in the gaseous state, gives us H2O in the liquid state. So just by summing up these 2, we end up with this reaction here. However, if you consider this reaction here and this reaction here, you will be able to notice that they are not similar. For instance, we have an additional minus H2O term here, additional gas molecule here. So what we have essentially done is, just by summing these two reactions up, like in our generalized example, just by summing these two up, we were not able to recover the overall reaction. So it means that just by summing up delta H1 and delta H2, we will not be able to arrive at the overall change. So the Hess's law works. So it is important for us to understand that the Hess's law of summation works only when you are able to recover the overall reaction from the different steps that are involved. So we considered the overall reaction, or rather convoluted reaction, that involved chemical reaction and a phase change. We separated it, or we split it into a reaction, chemical reaction alone and a phase change alone. We summed it up, but we were not able to recover the overall reaction. So when we are not able to recover the overall reaction, then the direct summation of these individual change in the enthalpies will not result in the overall change in the enthalpy. So we need to ensure that the overall change in the reaction is recovered. So in this case, it is rather straightforward for us. So what we need to do is include a prefactor 2 here, a prefactor 2 here. So that means we have to consider twice the enthalpy change in the second step. So in order to recover the ultimate or the overall reaction from the different steps that are involved, we need to include a prefactor of 2 in the step 2. That means we also have to consider twice the enthalpy change associated with it. Now when we sum it up, so yeah, let me try to sum it up in this page itself. So now when we sum it up, what we have is, we are essentially introducing the prefactor 2 here. So once we introduce prefactor 2 here and the prefactor 2 here, so that is what essentially we are doing. And once we are able to do that, then these two factors or these two terms get cancelled, and you end up with 2H2, which is in the gaseous state, and O2, which is in the gaseous state as well, ultimately gives you water in its liquid state. So by introducing the prefactor 2, you were able to recover the overall reaction only by introducing the prefactor 2. For instance, you could have said, or you could assume that since there is 2 involved in this product, you can directly could have brought it into the next step. However, when you consider the phase change as it is, directly just the phase change alone, without any tails or heads associated with it, just when you consider the phase change alone, having a prefactor 2 in the product and a 2 in the reactant side would seem redundant. You have a prefactor 2 in the product side and the 2 in the reactant side. So I mean, when you consider just the phase change alone, it seems that it is meaningless. However, the reason we need to consider these prefactor is because only these prefactor helps us recover the overall chemical reaction. So if we ignore this prefactor, what essentially we will be doing is, we will be considering just the sum of these two change in the enthalpies and assuming that it is equal to the overall one. So whenever we consider the SS law of summation, we need to ensure that these different steps, they ultimately give you the overall end product in a balanced way. Of course, if we ignore the balance, it is possible for us to say, okay, we have considered in the first step the chemical reaction and the second step phase change, so ultimately in one way or the other you will get the end product. However, since we are not only just considering or worried about the arriving at the end product, but we are concerned about calculating or estimating the overall thermodynamic change associated with the complex reaction, we need to have a balanced expression. We need to recover the overall reaction from the different intermediate steps that are involved. Only when we are able to do that, then the corresponding relation in the change in the thermodynamic variables will ultimately help us calculate the overall change in the thermodynamic variable, that is the enthalpy here. So this example, what it teaches us is the SS law, of course, apply for this complex reaction wherein chemical reaction and phase changes involved. They occur simultaneously. But since we are in a position to express this chemical reaction plus phase change using state variables, we have separated it into two steps, one just considering the chemical reaction, the other considering the phase change alone. So because of this separation, now we were able to estimate the corresponding changes in the thermodynamic functions, and therefore we were able to estimate the corresponding changes in enthalpy associated with chemical reaction and corresponding change in the enthalpy associated with the phase change. Now, without balancing out, if I consider just the direct summation, if I just sum it up, the overall the change in the enthalpy in step 1, change in the enthalpy in step 2, it ultimately will not give me the overall change in the enthalpy, because the reaction will not give me the end product. So therefore, I need to ensure that the reactants are the intermediate reactions, the smaller step reactions are in such a way that they give me, or related in such a way that they help us reach the final reaction or the ultimate reaction. Only if the ultimate reaction or the overall reaction is reached, then we can relate the corresponding change in the thermodynamic variables. And that is the reason why, even though the summation of these two change in the enthalpies will not give you the final change in the enthalpy, this relation here, delta 1 plus 2 delta H2, will give us the final change in the enthalpy. So whenever we are trying to employ the Hess's law of summation or of heat summation, we need to ensure that whatever changes we make to each of these steps in order to arrive at the overall reaction should be translated to the thermodynamic change associated with it. Now here, initially we thought, okay, the change in the H2O gas to H2O water. So one molecule of gas is transforming to one molecule of water. So, or rather, one molecule of H2O gas is transforming to one molecule of liquid water. So we don't have, it's already balanced. We don't, if there is no need for introducing a 2 here. But if we don't introduce the 2 here or a prefactor 2 here, we won't be able to recover the ultimate reaction, and therefore we won't be able to just sum these two up and arrive at the final change in the in the enthalpy. So therefore, we need to ensure that we are able to recover the overall reaction from these steps, therefore, and correspondingly introduce the change in the thermodynamic variables, and only then we will be able to estimate the overall change in enthalpy of the reaction from the change in the enthalpy from the intermediate steps. So again, this is one of the example wherein Hess's law is being used, and this example is rather, even though it is quite straightforward, it helps us understand how complicated a simple, apparently a simple reaction could be, and how rather we can split it into 2 steps. Now we can, before moving further, we will also consider even another example, which is even though it is just a chemical reaction, the way we arrive at the final enthalpy change is quite different. So let us consider another example that involves, instead of gases and liquid, that involves purely a solid state transformation or a solid state change in a specific material. For our second example, let us consider a reaction that we are familiar with. This reaction is nothing but the corrosion of iron. What essentially happens in the corrosion of iron is that the iron, it reacts with oxygen to form iron oxide. So iron, which is generally in the form of solid, it reacts with oxygen that is present in the air to form Fe2O3 iron oxide, which is nothing but the rust that surrounds any iron components that we observe or that we allow it to be present in the nature. So if we leave the iron to be exposed to air, it reacts with oxygen to form this layer of rust of this composition Fe2O3. Now this equation, as you know, is not balanced, and therefore let us attempt to balance this out. And if we try to balance this, we can introduce 3 oxygen molecules, and thereby ultimately we have 6 oxygen atoms at the product, and correspondingly 6 oxygen atoms that is involved in the reactant side. And so in order to balance the amount of iron that corresponds to the products, we need to introduce the prefactor 4 here. Now the enthalpy that we need to find out is for this balanced reaction, and this is something we don't know. So whenever we want to estimate the enthalpy of a reaction, it is important for us to note that this reaction is balanced. So whatever enthalpy we are estimating, either be it in a theoretical condition or be it in an experimental condition. If this experiment happens or this reaction happens in a physical system and we are calculating the enthalpy, then we are calculating the enthalpy for the balanced reaction. Whatever enthalpy we are ascertaining, it is for the balanced reaction. Even though for the sake of simplicity, we can get rid of this balancing aspect. But we should note that this is for our simplicity. Whatever happens in the actual physical instance is a balanced reaction, because in a physical instance we need to have the conservation of mass, meaning whatever number of atoms that are involved in the reactant side must be recovered in the product side. So therefore, whatever enthalpy change that happens in a physical system is for the balanced reaction that we have. So even though while representing a given reaction, we might represent it in an imbalanced way, but when we are calculating the enthalpy or thermodynamic change associated with this reaction, it is for the balanced case. So whatever thermodynamic changes, be it enthalpy change or whatever it is, we calculate it for exclusively for balanced reaction. This is primarily because the system, when it reacts, the system when it changes in its physical condition, it changes in a balanced manner. The mass is conserved. Whatever input you provide, whatever number of atoms you provide as the input will be recovered as the output in the physical system. So therefore, even though for our simplicity we write the reaction in some cases in an imbalanced manner, the thermodynamic changes that correspond to that particular reaction is always for the balanced one, because that is how it occurs in the physical system. So this is the reaction we are interested in, and we don't know the overall change in the enthalpy while this reaction occurs. So we will consider or break down this entire reaction into smaller steps. The first step involves the same reactants Fe and O2, but an intermediate product, that is Fe3O4. So we consider a reaction that is Fe and O2, but we have an intermediate step. So step 1, the product of step 1 is Fe3O4. Now let us attempt to balance this reaction out. Now if I introduce 2 here, what I would end up having is 8 oxygen atoms and 6 iron atoms. So therefore I can introduce a 4 and a 6 here. So what essentially we have is, we have now a 6 iron atoms and 8 oxygen atoms. Or it is also possible for us to directly state that we introduce a 2 here and a 3 here. So in this way we are able to arrive at 4 oxygen atoms at the product and 4 oxygen atoms at the reactant, and 3 iron atoms in the reactant and 3 iron atoms in the product. So now this product of the first reaction, it again reacts with oxygen to give us the end product of the overall reaction. So we have considered step 1 that gives us an intermediate product, and we balance this reaction to calculate the enthalpy change associated with step 1. So this is known to us. Now we consider the step 2, where the product of the step 1 acts as the reactant for step 2, and it combines with oxygen to give us the end product of the overall reaction. Now let us attempt to balance this out. Now when we attempt to balance this out, there we can introduce, for instance, there are 2 oxygen atoms, rather 2 iron atoms here, whereas we have 3 iron atoms on this side, and we have on the whole 6 oxygen atoms in the reactant side and 3 in the product side. So if I introduce 2 to balance out the oxygen, then there would be an imbalance in the iron. So let us try to begin with balancing out the iron. So in order to balance out the iron, I introduce 2 here and I introduce 3 here. So I introduce 2 to balance out iron. So ultimately I have 6 iron atoms in the reactant and in the product side. Now let us consider the oxygen atoms. So oxygen atoms, there are 8 oxygen atoms plus 2, there are ultimately 10 oxygen atoms in the reactant side. So 2, 8 and then 2 here, so 10. and here we have just 9 oxygen atom. So we need to reduce 1 oxygen atom in the reactant side, so we bring 1 by 2 here. So ultimately we have also balanced this second step of the reaction. So the first step is balanced, the second step is balanced, so therefore we also have a corresponding change in the enthalpy. So we have 2 balanced reactions and correspondingly we have 2 enthalpy change. So now we have an intermediate, or we broken down the overall reactions into 2 different intermediate reactions, and we have balanced it out, and ultimately it means that we have arrived at, or it is possible for us to estimate the corresponding change in the enthalpies of these 2 steps. So let us verify. We have the 3 oxygen atoms, or rather 3 iron atoms in the reactant side and 3 in the product side, 4 oxygen in step 1 in the reactant and 4 in the product. If you consider step 2, there are 6 iron atoms in the reactant side, 6 in the product side, and we have 8 and 9 oxygen atoms in the reactant side and 9 in the product side. Again, only if it is balanced, we will be able to ascertain the corresponding change in the enthalpy. Now, let us just try to sum this up. So, let us just try to see if the overall change in the enthalpy can be calculated by summing up the first change in the enthalpy and the second change in the enthalpy, or the change in the enthalpy associated with the first step and the change in the enthalpy associated with the second step. This is rather straightforward. Let us try to see if it is possible. If we are able to arrive at this relation of just the summation of these 2 gives us the overall change in the enthalpy. So for that, what we need to do is we need to bring the reactant or the product of the first step into the reactant state. So ultimately we have 3 Fe plus 2 O2 minus Fe3O4 plus 2 Fe3O4 and plus 1 by, so half of oxygen, and this will ultimately give you the end product. Now what essentially happens is, if we just consider the summation of these 2, we are not able to get rid of the intermediate molecule on the reactant side. So we don't have a complete cancellation of the intermediate molecule. So there is a remnant intermediate molecule. So we have -1 here and 2 here. So 2 minus 1, there is 1 remnant intermediate molecule that is present in the reactant side. So just by considering the summation of these 2 intermediate reactions, we won't be able to recover the overall reaction. So that means we won't be able to estimate the overall change in the enthalpy by just considering the summation of these 2 enthalpies here. So we need to appropriately, so this will not work. So what we need to do is, we need to appropriately manipulate these reactions in such a way that we are able to recover the overall reaction. So in order to manipulate it, first let us try to ensure, we will begin with step 2, and let us try to ensure that we are able to arrive at the same number of molecules we have in case of the overall reaction. So we have in the overall reaction 2 Fe2O3 molecules, but in case of step 2 we have 3 Fe2O3 molecules. So let us begin by considering or trying to arrive at the same number of end product molecules. So if we, in order to achieve that, we need to multiply this here by 2 by 3. We need to multiply this reaction here by 2 by 3. So we are multiplying step 2 by 2 by 3. We are considering 2/3 of step 2. So what we would end up having is, if I consider 2/3 of step 2, so I am multiplying 2/3 of step 2 here. So we will have 4 by 3 Fe3O4 plus these 2, the 2 1 by 2 and 2 by 3, the 2's will get cancelled, and 1 by 3 O2, which would give us 2 Fe2O3. So we have manipulated the step 2 by multiplying it by 2 by 3. So that means we have 4 by 3 Fe3O4, 1 by 3 O2 and 2 Fe2O3. So the reason we have done this is because we now have the same reactant, or rather the same end product for both the ultimate reaction and the step 2 of the reaction. So the end product is now the same for the overall reaction and also for the step 2. Since we have manipulated the step 2, we have to make the same manipulation to the overall change in the end, or the change corresponding change in the enthalpy. So we need to consider 2 by 3 of delta H2. Now we have this reaction as step 2. Now let us consider step 1. In case of step 1, these two needs to cancel out. In case of step 1, these two intermediate products, they need to cancel out. So in order for these two intermediate products to cancel out, we need to have a prefactor of 4 by 3. So then we will attempt by multiplying 4 by 3 to step 1. So the initial condition for us to introduce 2 by 3 is because we want to arrive at same end product, that is 2 molecules of Fe2O3. So in the overall reaction we have the end product of 2 molecules of Fe2O3, and that we want to arrive at in step 2. So we have multiplied it by 2 by 3 and we have arrived at 2 molecules of Fe2O3. Now we have to manipulate the step 1 in such a way that the intermediate product that posed a problem when we just consider the summation of the two enthalpies, that needs to be cancelled out. So for that to happen, we need to multiply the step 1 with 4 by 3 so that it cancels out, the intermediate product, it cancels out. So when we do that, when we multiply 4 by 3, or for step 1 with 4 by 3, what we end up having is 4 Fe plus we have 2 into 4 by 3 O2, that is 8 by 3 O2, and that will give us 4 by 3 Fe3O4. So this is the reaction we have now. Now again, this is step 1 and this is step 2. Even though we have considered the step 2 initially, we need to make the distinction that this is step 1 and this is step 2. The similar manipulation that has been made to the corresponding enthalpy change must be made here as well. So we need to consider 4 by 3 delta H1. Now let us try to sum these two up. That is 4 by 3, 4 third or 4 by 3 step 1 plus 2 by 3 step 2. Let us try to sum these two up. Now in order to sum these two up, we need to bring this here, and if I bring this here, this becomes negative. So what essentially happens is these two terms get cancelled, and what we are left with is this end product that already has been recovered. So these two intermediate products are cancelled and these end product has been recovered already, because that was one of the criteria for our manipulation. And now we need to ensure that these other reactants are balanced. So we have 4 Fe and we have 8 by 3 O2 plus 1 by 3 O2, that gives us 2 Fe2O3. So this is the final reaction that we get after summing up these two. When we sum up these two, this is the final reactions that we get. Now we have 4, we have already recovered this term. We have 2 Fe2O3 and the initial reaction as 2 Fe2O3. Now we have 4 Fe on the reactant, the initial reaction as the 4 Fe, or the overall reaction as 4 Fe. Now we need to see if this combination gives us 3 O2. Now 8 by 3 plus 1 by 3 is here, so it gives us 9 by 3, that is nothing but 3. So even this recovers the overall oxygen atoms that are involved in the reaction. So ultimately, by this manipulation, that is considering 2/3 of the step 2 and 4 by 3 of step 1, we were able to recover the overall reaction, and we have also made corresponding changes to the enthalpy change. So that means the only way we will be able to calculate the overall change in the enthalpy is through these corresponding changes. That is, the overall change of enthalpy that occurs during the oxidation of iron can be calculated only when we consider the 4 by 3 delta H1 plus 2 by 3 delta H2. So this is exactly what we are seeing here. So we have 2 by 3 delta H2 and 4 by 3 delta H1. So only when we introduce these prefactors, only when we manipulate our reactions, intermediate reactions, in such a way that we are able to recover the overall reaction and make the corresponding changes to the change in the enthalpy, we will be able to recover or calculate the overall change in the enthalpy that corresponds to the overall reaction. So what we have is, we have a principal or rather a complex reaction, and there is an enthalpy change associated with it, and this complex reaction or the change in enthalpy for this complex reaction is quite difficult for us to understand, and therefore we break this down into smaller reaction. And this is possible again because we have represented this overall reaction in terms of the state variables. And once we are able to do that and express it in terms of the smallest step, first we need to ensure that the smallest step recovers the original reaction. So in order to ensure that the smallest step recovers the original reaction, we need to manipulate appropriately these smaller steps. And in order to manipulate appropriately these smaller steps, we do that by incorporating appropriate prefactors. So in this case, we have incorporated these prefactors for the reaction so that the reactions are balanced and they recover the overall entire reaction. These intermediate step reactions, they recover the overall reaction. And once we are sure of it, then this manipulation is carried over to the corresponding change in the thermodynamic variables. So we have considered 4/3 of the step 1. So this is required to recreate the original reaction. So the same 4/3 needs to be considered for the change in the thermodynamic variable. And similarly, we consider 2/3 of the reaction or the step 2 reaction. A similar change in the thermodynamic variable needs to be considered. And combining these two alone will give us the overall change in the enthalpy that is associated with the entire reaction. So there are two critical aspects that is associated with this S law of summation. So first of all, S law of summation doesn't always mean that delta H, the overall change in the enthalpy, is just the summation of H1 and delta H2 and so on and so forth. It's just not the summation of all these different intermediate steps. It's just not that. It is dependent on the amount of the different steps, the manipulation that we make to different steps in order to arrive at the original reaction. So this manipulation in order to arrive at the original reaction is reflected in the prefactor that we consider. And therefore, only when the intermediate reaction recovers the original reaction and the manipulation is able to do that, that prefactor needs to be carried out for calculating the overall change in the enthalpy for the entire reaction. This always does not hold true. Always is not true. So in order to ensure that the Hess's law of summation works perfectly, we need to consider if we are able to recover the entire reaction from the individual step, and whatever manipulations we make to ensure that the overall reaction is recovered from these steps, those manipulations needs to be carried over to the corresponding thermodynamic changes. So there are several critical concepts that are associated with this S law of summation. So whatever enthalpy change we are calculating, it is for a balanced reaction. That is something we need to understand. Secondly, whatever manipulations we make to the reaction needs to be carried over to the corresponding change in the thermodynamic variables. And while we are making the summation, these corresponding changes, these manipulations need to be included. So these manipulations in the form of prefactors, they need to be included. So the way to express this will be something of this form. The S's law in a generalized way can be expressed in this manner of I. So this is how the generalized way of representing the S's law looks like. So it's not just the summation, but it involves certain manipulation for each of the steps that are involved, and this manipulation allows us to relate these different intermediate steps to the original reaction that we were initially interested in. So we saw two examples. In one example, it was rather straightforward. We were able to relate the summations to the original reaction, and in the second example that we have considered, the manipulation was quite tricky, and somehow these involved fraction, but only after we were sure that we are able to recover the original reaction, we arrived at this relation. So So therefore, SS law, and as the name indicates, it's not always the summation. It involves specific contribution or specific prefactors. So with this, I would like to wind this lecture up. It's already something for you to think about. So I would give some time for you to understand how this SS law operates. Even though by the look of things, it appears as though we just consider the sum of it, we need to be sure about how this enthalpy or how we are able to relate these intermediate steps to the original step. So let's see ourselves in the next lecture, wherein we will build on this understanding of this SS law of summation. Goodbye.